One of the questions that I hear almost more than any other living here in Spain is, why are wages so low in Spain? People work hard, they put in long hours and often more hours than countries that pay much higher salaries for the same position. So why does Spain struggle to raise wages year after year, no matter who's in power and no matter what reforms are promised? This video isn't about blame, and it's not about immigration that people often say cause these issues. It's about structure, and once you see it, a lot of Spain suddenly starts to make sense. Spain isn't a poor country. It's not a country that's failing, and it certainly isn't a lazy country. But it is stuck in a system that keeps salaries ridiculously low, even when the economy is growing. Now, there's some key things to understand here. Wages will not rise simply because people work harder. They rise because a system allows them to. So in this video, let's take a look at why Spain's system isn't allowing this. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that we all know a lot of Spain's economy is made up of tourism, hospitality, retail and seasonal services. And as great as these industries are at actually creating jobs, they're terrible at creating high wages. Now, a lot of this is down to the fact that they compete on price, not productivity. Margins are very thin. And as I just said, a lot of the time, these kind of jobs in these sectors are very seasonal. So when you add all that together, it's pretty much impossible to pay Northern European wages on Southern European margins. Now, this does go a fair way to explain the low pay system here in Spain, but it doesn't explain everything. And this is where people often raise fair objection. Now, I've heard people say, okay, so that might explain low wages in the tourism sector, but what about jobs that are not tourism based? So, for example, let's take a lorry driver, a truck driver. In Spain, a truck driving job will typically pay around 1,300 to 1,500 euros per month. That very same position in the UK will pay between 1,300 and 1,500 pounds per week. It's the same license, the same responsibility, the same skill set and the same long hours. So what's going on? Well, obviously the difference isn't the job. The difference is the system that the job exists in. For example, in the UK, we all know that there's a large shortage of drivers. Employers have to compete, so wages will rise. However, in Spain, it's the complete opposite. There's a surplus of labour and far fewer alternatives for those seeking employment. So what you typically see is that wages will settle at the lowest possible level that people are willing to accept, or more to the point, are forced to accept. It's not that Spanish lorry drivers work less hard or they've got a lower skill set. It's simply the fact that they've got less leverage. And this pattern, if you look closely, also repeats itself across most sectors, whether it's construction, logistics, warehousing, or even skilled trades, which I think tells something very important, that low wages in Spain aren't just about tourism. It's about how the labour market works. Spain has one of the highest rates of temporary employment contracts in the whole of Europe. And that matters a lot more than people realise, because imagine it, if you're on a short-term contract, you can't negotiate pay, you can't plan your life, you can't take risks, and to a degree you can't walk away. And employers know all of these things. Temporary work creates a workforce which is flexible, productive, but very weak at the negotiating table. And when workers have got no leverage, wages simply don't rise. Now, this isn't because employers in Spain are necessarily villains, but it's because the system rewards caution and not investment. Now, another issue to add to the mix here is that Spain's youth unemployment is very high. It has been for decades, even during the so-called good years. And what this does is this creates a downwards pressure onto the wage structural system. So let's imagine, for example, if you've got a whole bunch of young people desperate to work, employers know this, and for this reason, employers don't need to offer an incentive. Employers don't need to raise wages. And in turn, what this means is people that have gained the experience are not properly rewarded for their skills. So what you typically see happening here in Spain is that young people will bounce between internships, short-term contracts and underpaid roles. And then once they've learnt the skill, they simply leave the country to go and earn their fortune elsewhere. And this leads on to the next problem. Low wages are often blamed on low productivity, but productivity isn't about effort, it's about systems. Look, let's be honest, Spain has many small fragmented businesses, it has limited scaling, it has underinvestment in technology, and we all know it's got heavy bureaucracy. Small firms are struggling to invest, firms that don't scale don't innovate, and innovation is what raises productivity. And productivity is what raises wages. What I'm trying to say is that people here are working hard, but the output per worker is staying capped. Okay, so here's the vicious circle, right? Spain educates talented young people. These young people gain skills and they learn languages. They then look at the labour market, and more specifically, they look at the wages within this labour market. And what do? They simply go, no thank you, and they leave. Now that removes the exact same people who could increase productivity, build scalable businesses and push wages upward. But meanwhile, instead, the economy continues to rely on these lower paid roles to function. And this isn't a moral failure, it's economic gravity. So why does Spain struggle to pay higher wages? Well, we know it's not because people don't work hard, because they work very hard here in Spain. We know it's not because of tourism alone. And we also know it's not because of immigration. But we do know it's because wages are set by labour surplus, not by value. Temporary contracts weaken workers, youth unemployment suppresses pay, productivity growth is slow, and as I just said, talent is simply leaving the country. Now, whether it's a waiter or a truck driver, the pattern is the same time and time again. Wages follow leverage, not effort. And until that changes, the people that are living here in this country are going to continue feeling the same frustration. Anyway, guys, I hope you found this video interesting. And if you have, I'm going to ask you to make sure you hit that like button. And also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free. It doesn't cost a penny. But what it does do is it helps a small channel such as this to continue to grow. Anyway, enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, and I'll catch you in the next one.